Funky fantasy. The pull. Stratos, arrows. War of Nerds. I don't know about y'all. That intro was actually not as bad as I thought about in my head as I was doing it. Anyways, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the War of Nerds podcast. We are your bearded nerdy hosts, and here to give you another episode of wonderful, amazing wonderment stuff. Entertainment, the things that, we do. So tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about video games and just all about video games. And I'm pretty sure this is exactly how I talked when we did the original video games episode, but that's fine because this time we're actually going to talk all about video games. Well, except when we forget stuff. So anyways, my first question for you guys is, what is your, we'll kind of pick up where we left off. What are your favorite systems to play with? And, well, what's your favorite individual system to play with? And what systems do you currently own?
All right. For me, most of my stuff that I play is either on my PC or my Switch. It's primarily on my PC. But I do own a Switch and I own an Xbox something or other I bought from somebody else. I couldn't even tell you what generation it is. That shows you how much I play it. But I do have a PlayStation
I
2, but it's
do.
super old. Sorry.
Man, PS2 was my first system that I ever got. So if I still had it, that would be amazing. But I have a Switch as well. Mainly, I use it to play with my son, his monster truck games. But I have my main system that I play is my Xbox One. I don't know if I'll ever upgrade or just stay in the past with the Xbox One. And then I play games on PC.
My gosh, you're like a dinosaur. You still have the original Xbox One. That is amazing. I, how has it not broken yet? That's what I want to know. Like, my dude, you have like a Zylock enchanted your Xbox style level Xbox. It's that good, man. Um, so I have a Nintendo Switch and an Xbox. Generally, I'll go onto my computer, laptop, and I'll just use Xbox Game Pass to use a controller and just play on my laptop because I'm on the truck. So, you know, less space, easier to do. So between that and my Switch, those are the two systems that I have. I have considered upgrading to a PC because a lot of my friends play PC. But at the same time, I'm just like, I don't even have time to play video games as is right now. So why would I go waste senseless dollars on a machine that I'm still not going to be able to play? Um, so I have the Xbox Series S. I haven't upgraded, probably never will. Because everything new Xbox makes seems to just be more trash than the previous version. So it's like, anyways. So we're gonna move on to actual games that we like to play on our
I
systems.
I do want to say I do have an Game Boy SP and a Game Boy DS still. Uh,
Oh.
Oh man, that's so awesome and not fair. And just everything I feel from when I was in middle school, the jealousy and the hatred that I had for all the other cool kids who had the DSs and all the cool little systems that I didn't get until I was much older. That's what I have for you right now. That
I
and
bought it with
also
rent money.
and also admiration and awe. Good for you, sir. The fact that you still have those systems this late after, like, that's amazing. I wish I still had my PSP, truth be told.
Oh wow, that's like the original Switch, like because the design of the Switch looks almost like a chunkier PSP.
Yep.
Pretty much, except the controllers on the PSP were like way better, because it was like so much easier to maneuver your hands around with the PSP. All your PlayStation controls, your L switches, all your stuff was all one compact unit. Versus the Switch, you have to get those big bulky kind of outside ones to put it, and so your hands kind of feel a little bit more awkward compared to your classic Nintendo style joystick hand, with the
Mhm.
big long try that goes down the middle, and then the shorter ones on the side, and then you'll jab your thumb over to get that like middle switch. You remember those? You would like
Mhm.
hold the middle part,
Yep.
and you do all that trying to play like Super Smash Mario Brothers or Legend of Zelda or Donkey Kong or whatever it was. Um,
That's a
man,
good question,
those
though.
yeah.
Which controller out of all the controllers that have existed that you guys have played with has been your like favorite as far as like comfort and playability? Do you guys have a leading controller?
The the original Xbox, really chunky, huge one was no. uh,
I
in
almost
all
bought it for a
seriousness, the
second.
PlayStation 2, right? The
Yeah.
PlayStation 2 controller. It was sleek, it was thin, and it was. I still love that controller.
Hmm.
PlayStation always made better controllers than Xbox. I'll just say that. Like their consoles weren't better, that's for sure. Like the consoles were consoles, but PlayStation always had these awesome controllers. They were so comfortable in your hands. It took Xbox like 3 generations of systems to finally catch up and understand like, oh, maybe we should, make a controller that doesn't completely feel like you're playing with carpal tunnel. Like, it's like
That that original Xbox controller was like a giant brick. Like if you took
Yep.
a textbook and formed it into controller, it was huge.
like
I
dude, yeah.
I would agree that PlayStation 2 was that's the original one that I played the most on. But like from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 to even like PlayStation Now, their controller has not changed very much at all because they found something that the player base liked. But I will give an honorable mention not to the playability, but to the incredible shape of the Nintendo 64 controller that looked like you
I
just
knew where
had
you were going with
a
that.
space fighter in your hand.
It
But
did.
it was not really
It
the
was
best,
awesome.
but
Yeah.
its look was superior.
It literally looked
Uh,
like two short things right here with a big one that went down the middle, and you
Hmm.
would hold it by that middle part so your thumb could be on the main joystick. And
Hmm.
then you would have to decide, what do I want to do? Do I want to have my thumb down here so I can get my thumb to the main joystick, or do I want to have my hand over on the left so I have the directional control pads, and then move my thumb over to the side like I'm trying to play a thumb of war
Yeah.
game? It's like, so you're just like, you hear the do 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 do. You're like, I'm trying to get the middle button. Do not Kirby smash me. You're like, KO. I'm like, all right, so much for that.
Yep.
Um,
uh,
so my favorite controller, I love the one that Alfred mentioned. Um, but the new gen Xbox controllers are the best ones that I've probably ever had. Um, they're really comfortable. They're
fair.
perfectly shaped. It's easy to get all the buttons with,
Hmm.
and I've got big hands, so I mean I can palm a basketball with one hand. And that old controller were like the Nintendo one. I was just like, yeah, so that's how I felt with some of those controllers, like the Nintendo Switch ones, where you're like the thing, you feel like you're just extending a Magic Gambit card stack even farther with the
Hmm.
Nintendo Switch while you add those controllers on the side versus just playing with the
Yeah.
regular controller itself. Um, so yeah, anybody in the comments, let us know what your favorite controller is, and or what
Absolutely.
system model, gen, etc. Or if you're a PC person and you literally like key smash, like that's how you play because you're a cheating hack. That's fine. Just let us know in the comments. What did I say something? Sorry, that was meant to be a silent thought, but uh, no, 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 no. Not everybody that plays with the keyboards are cheating hacks. But when I played Call of Duty in the military, I'd be going against some dudes who were playing on like these big rigged up PC units that were like hacking games and like playing with the keyboards and like I don't know. I'm weird. I've always been old school. I like a controller. Unless we were playing like Red Alert, back in the day when you're like trying to build your little establishments and go attack the other legions and et cetera, et cetera. Play on the computer with the little 4 directional pads and the space bar. It's like playing Jumping Bean. Like doing, 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 doing. Sorry, you have died, like due to a lack of farts that you contain within your system. You need more acid in your diet. Oh, good. I'll remember that for next time. So, over the years, I'm going to look this up too, but over the years we've had so many different games that have mimicked others in the style of adventure and assassination and just kind of quest type games. Assassin's Creed. Uh, what the heck is Sly Cooper? Um, Skyrim, if you want to consider it a similar kind of element of an open world type quest type game. Do you guys have a favorite type of game like that in that genre that you enjoy playing in
I,
particular?
I would say for me, Fable 3 would probably be my favorite adventure that it's similar to that genre, and it takes place during like an industrial revolution. So you're mixing like flintlock rifles and pistols with swords and magic, and you can go like any of the three routes that you want to go between the three of those, and then you're overthrowing like your own brother's reign. I think brother or uncle, but like you're gonna overthrow him who's running everything into the ground. And like you have to make these decisions that either take you where you're making good decisions or you're making bad decisions, and you can play it either way and still win the game either way. But like there's just multiple ways to play the game, and I kind of like that aspect where like you're not playing linear where you have to go one way and that's the only way to play the game, but you have that open world and open choices to make during it.
Okay.
For me, I've got a couple. Uh, uh Number one has got to be Assassin's Creed 2. That was just an amazing game. I loved taking what was already amazing with the original Assassin's Creed and giving you a little bit more. Fable 1 was dead one of my top games growing up. I didn't actually ever own it, but I played it at my cousin's all the time. And then there was one that is probably, if not my favorite, fighting for the top spot amongst those two. It was a Greek mythology game, and you played as Jason from the Argonauts, and you got to choose, like, you only had three of the pantheon that you could choose from, but you got to follow one of the paths: Athena, Hermes, or Apollo, and you got to pick like your, so one was healing and shields, one was spears, and one was swords. Uh, but it was an open world game like that, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And you had
That's
to, it
awesome.
was similar, I think, to the concept of Dante's Inferno, that video game, but instead of saving your girlfriend or wife from it, it was actually no, it was saving your wife from it, but it was told in the Greek mythology viewpoint.
I've not heard of that, but that sounds cool.
It
It
does.
was a blast. I loved it.
I think for my favorite open world type games, growing up and even still today, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time was probably one of the best ones on the old Nintendo, especially for the Legend of Zelda games in general. I think it still holds up to be one of the best out of. I mean, we have new ones coming out like Breath of the Wild, and even the most new one that came out just a couple years ago. But Ocarina of Time was just like one of the OG ones. It's just so much fun. You're going around, you're playing the game. I played that when I was a really little kid, but it's been a long time. I just remember loving that game. Um, Street Fighter 2 is not really in open world style games, but Street Fighter 2 was just fun. Um, just saying. Um, a lot of my buddies play Red Dead Redemption and Borderlands. I don't play any of those games. I did play Fallout 4, and I loved Fallout 4. And I messed around with a little bit of New Vegas. Um, so I liked Fallout 4. Um, but for me, the Ezio collection for Assassin's Creed will always be my favorite just because it's OG Assassin's Creed and it's you're over in Italy, like old school Italy, learning to see all this cool stuff. Um, Sly Cooper, when I was growing up, I loved Sly Cooper. It's basically just more of a kid friendly version of Assassin's Creed, essentially.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, Mario World was also, I loved it. Like just your old school classic open world. Um, fun on the Mario on the smacking on the mushrooms. What else did I enjoy? Did either of you guys ever play Mass Effect?
No.
Yeah,
Okay, so I only played one of the Mass Effects. I played Mass Effect 4. Um, and I played it for a little bit. and it was a lot of fun. I always enjoyed the part where you could like choose your like multiple choice answer and choose how you were gonna like affect the situation to come out. So, were you gonna end up going down the villainous route, or are you gonna go down the hero route? You know, what are you gonna say in these situations? Similar to Kodor, like you could kind of choose to be a villain or a hero. They don't make those types of games as much anymore. Um, I think they just did though with the new Star Wars Fallen Order game that they did. I think you got to choose if you wanted to be a villain or a hero. I haven't gotten to play the game yet. It was on my bucket list, but because I loved the first game, and I kind of added that Assassin's Creed type kind of like wall running type thing, or old Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any more open world ones oh, obviously Skyrim. I love Skyrim.
Yeah.
Um, that's my favorite. Um, that's my favorite out of that series. Bethesda just can't seem to get their crap together lately with any of that stuff. But yeah, out of the Elder Scroll games, yeah, Fallout 4 is my favorite. Not the online version. I don't like that crap. I just want the regular like story version, just play the open map. But um will be my question for you guys. Oh yeah. So my next question is, have either of you guys played God of War?
So I've watched a lot of playthroughs and I've played like a little bit, but I've
Okay.
not played the God of War series, but I do love the concept of the games and I've watched other people play it on like Twitch streams and things like that. And like
Yeah.
it is a great, fantastic game. Series, in fact, like all of them.
Yeah, I've never played that game. I'm looking at a list right now too of more games. You guys remember the old school game Metroid Prime?
Yep.
Uh, yeah, that
With
was
Samus.
Samus, wasn't it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that just
Uh,
brings back
so
Nintendo,
I have
man.
something. I, I don't know. So obviously nowadays with like apps and stuff on your phone, card games like Yu-Gi-Oh have been super popular.
Hmm.
But I remember back in the day, they had a CD that I think came with one of the movies, and it was a Pokemon card game you could download on your computer and play. And for me, I had three younger sisters, and none of them were really into card games. And I had some friends that played, but not a whole lot of them. And to get together and play was super difficult. So for me, growing up, having an AI I could compete against and play those card games was really awesome for me. So there was the Pokemon one that I really enjoyed. They had it on Game Boy too. They had a Pokemon card game uh, I also enjoyed a lot. And then as Digimon became popular, they had a card game on PlayStation 2, or it's for PlayStation 1, but I played it on my PS2. I love that game because it was back before Yu-Gi-Oh, where they like had the monsters come to life. So I'm sitting and playing this game, and your Digimon are coming to life as you're playing the cards, which was really cool. And then obviously nowadays with the Yu-Gi-Oh card games that have been several different editions of them, I've played all of them, and I love each and every one of those. But that's a genre of game that I don't think they make as much, or because of the apps, they get kind of wonky with the meta and everything. But the original versing AI style card games, I love.
So now that you bring that up, and Nathan was talking about Street Fighter 2 earlier. Um, when I first went to college, like end of high school, going into college, I wasted so much money buying a card game called UFS, Universal Fighting System. And it took Street Fighter, Soul Calibur, and King of Fighters and some other like like fighting games and turned it into a card game system where you would have that character as your main character. That'd be your health or whatever. And then you'd play all these other cards for attacks, blocking, stuff like that. And it was like Magic the Gathering, but turned into a card game of fighting games. But it took all these games and combined it into one system. And later on, like an anime group bought it and started putting like Yu Yu Hakusho has cards, like other things have cards, and they put that into it. So like realistically, you could have Ryu fighting someone from this like anime over here, against each other in a card game system where it just kind of like
Hmm.
threw everything together. But like, man, I spent so much money on those cards. Like it was ridiculous. And I know we're getting out of video games, but it was cool that they took like this passion of card games and took from the video game
Yeah.
world and like combined the two, similar to like the Pokemon card game that you could play. And like there are a lot of those games that I still play on my phone that are like board games that me and my friends would sit down at a table and play. But now that we're all have our own lives and we never like see each other very often, I can play them from across the world or I can play against AI like you were talking about, but it's a board game turned into the virtual version of it. So I think that's a really cool concept that has come out in the last few years.
I know we touched on this in our previous episode, or at least I feel like we did, but and I kind of want to throw the question to you guys to start, but I've got some ideas. What what are some of your fondest memories of video games? And it kind of my answer kind of ties into what you were talking about, Ryan, which is what made me think of it. Uh, it because we talk, I mean, we're all. I don't know if Nathan has hit 30 yet, but we're all almost 30 plus
3 days.
individuals.
Oh,
All right. So yes, we're all 30 plus, and we we still look back on some of these nostalgic games. I know Nathan has a list over there. I've got a list here. I'm sure Ryan's got a list somewhere, if not in his head, on paper somewhere. So like, what is it about video games that really like some really fond memories you guys have of maybe a specific game or just a memory in general surrounding a video game?
I've, I've definitely got one for a few games.
all right.
So we would we would be at church, right? And we would have these like big, massive youth group like get-togethers, like overnighters, right? Our one opportunity to get away from our parents and have pop and snacks and play video games. We're like, what? The church is gonna let us play Super Smash? Yup. And so we'd be together at like those, um, and we would have like 10 to 12 TVs set up all around the room with like 4 controllers and like a Nintendo here, like a GameCube here, a Wii over there. Where people playing the Wii bowling and like doing all that stuff. And like you had Super Smash Mario Brothers over there, you had Donkey Kong over there, all Nintendo or Wii games, and it would just be all of us going after each other with like Kirby and Mario and Luigi and everything. So that's one of my biggest ones. And it's similar to like what Ryan had mentioned in the original episode, how he would go to the theater and they would have a video game up on the big screen. It was similar for our church.
Mm.
We would ask if we, because I would stay at the church a lot, just for the heck of it with some of the kids. And we would ask if we could use the big screen TVs that were in the waiting rooms, were the prayer rooms. And we would hook up video game systems to it, and we would play like Legend of Zelda and all that stuff. So that was one. Two would be going over to like a friend's house or a get together and playing Call of Duty 2, Black Ops Zombies, and holding out on the farm and the very far corner of the house next to the farm, trying to hold off all the zombies, or playing a Tom Clancy game. So like some sort of Tom Clancy or like James Bond style game. You remember those old James Bond games, the
Mhm.
007 games? Those were
GoldenEye.
really fun.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, GoldenEye was so much. I think that came out back in like 2008 or 9, um, somewhere in the 2000s.
Yeah, it
Um,
might have been earlier than that, but I'm not 100% on that.
I'm not either, but I can look it up. Um, but there would just be stuff like that, just going over to like uh friends' parties, or you're being watched and they're like playing video games, like sneak from our parents and play like Call of Duty. Tonight we shall be sinners. And we would play on the consoles and just have a lot of fun. And so I think why video games feel so special is the experience you're having. So either the people that you're around doing it with, or just the adventure of being in doing something that's not, you know, the life, I guess. Um, but I have no bad experiences playing video games, except playing against like campers and stuff on Call of Duty who they just want to sit in the same stinking spot, and I would get on the thing when I was in the Marines at 29 Palms, be playing, and I'd be on the system. I'd be like, "Hey, camper, you gonna actually like play the game, or are you just gonna sit there the entire thing and do rookie pop shots?" So it was really really annoying dealing with them. Of course, they wouldn't talk back either because, you know. But anyways, so that's I love video games. How about you guys?
Uh, so kind of playing off that camper thing, one of my favorite games to play was League of Legends, and that's probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. I was super into it. Had like a friend group that I'd met online. Like I didn't know any of them in person, but we'd play all the time together. And um you would have bad games because it was a very competitive game. So you would just get trashed by another team, like you'd all get mad at each other. But the group I had found, we got to this point where, like, when things weren't going our way, we would stop playing against like other competitive people. We'd go into a private match. We'd be like, all right, we're just going to do only these type of champions, or everybody has to build this, or everybody has to do this. And we just have fun. It didn't matter who killed who. You'd do silly things that were like against the meta of the game and how you should play it. And like we were able to enjoy the competitive version when we had success, but when we didn't, we were able to go off and do different things in the game in their other play modes that we just enjoyed as a group. And I think that's one of the cool things is there's always this stigma of like, oh, he sits inside and he plays video games all day long. He's such a loner. But the world of video games nowadays is like that's how most kids meet people. If they're not out doing things, like they have this whole gigantic friend group, and it can have its negative side that we don't have to go into. But like they meet all these people through these video games and that common interest. And I think that's a cool, unique thing about video games. But I think one of my like most nostalgia moments was I think I had just graduated high school and a friend of mine named Will, we had been up playing Dungeons and Dragons like all night. It was like 4 a.m. and we were done with that for the night, but we were like, well, we don't really want to go to bed, but we're like really tired, but we don't want to. Um, so we went over to my ex-girlfriend's house, who wasn't she was out of the country at the time, and I was watching her house, and she had all these video games and stuff because her parents had a lot of money. So we went downstairs and we were playing Dance Dance Revolution. Now this is like 5 a.m. We've been up for like 24 hours and we were killing it as far as like we know. Like we were getting like really high grades. We were killing these songs. We thought we were just doing amazing. And then like the next day, we're like, oh man, we did so good last night. Let's try again. And like we couldn't hit any steps whatsoever. So I don't know if it was like that you were super tired and you thought you were doing well, but you really weren't, but you just were having so much fun. But like, man, if I ever play DDR again and my life is on the line, I need to stay up like 24 hours and then just go at it from that point. But
It's a thing. It's
That's
every time we did those all 24-hour, all nighter video game fests, you got better the
yep.
later you stayed up. I don't know how it worked, but you
Mm-hmm.
did. And like until finally you were just ready to crash in that last like playthrough of Super Smash Mario Brothers, where you're like playing with Kirby, your best character, and you just get decimated by like
Mm-hmm.
somebody playing with freaking Princess Peach or something like, and it just kicks Kirby off, and I'm just like, I'm done. Okay, I'm done. Um, you said League of Legends, right, Ryan?
Yep.
I literally was scrolling past. League of Legends exists in a magical place that lies somewhere between intense competition and fun and enjoyable strategy. I scrolled right past that when you said it. Anyways, Alfred, how about you, man?
so mine ties into what you guys were talking about, and it's kind of I don't want to sound like the old geezer who's like, oh, back in my day it was better. But I do think that while online play has a lot of benefits, and like you said, Ryan, a lot of kids meet their larger friend group online now, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of positives that can come from that. I think they are missing something from the LAN parties, from the oh, let's go over to X's house and we're gonna sit the five of us and play whatever and do
Yep.
tournaments and you play and then we play and then we switch around because when you're together, I think it's just a little bit better, like more interaction wise.
I do
But
agree with that.
to say
It's
my
it's more fun.
favorite memories uh, are watching my dad play the original Diablo when I was a kid, and then watching him play Tiberian Sun. I remember getting out of school and running home because my dad got off earlier than I got out of school, and being like, "Can I please watch him play for a little bit?" And I wasn't playing; I didn't know what the heck was going on, but just kind of sitting there with my dad and watching
Hmm.
is one of my fondest memories of video games. And then later on, hanging with my cousins, friends, like I said, hanging out those late night video game sessions where you're taking turns and it's like, oh man, he passed out. Wake up, come on. And you're sitting there playing. So it's friends, it's family, it's community. I think that it's more than just the game that you're playing; it's the interactions you make around those games. Uh, and that's my nostalgia for it. My happy moments are watching my dad and then playing with my friends and just those late nights where you really grew closer as friends.
Yep.
Yeah, I I think too. Growing up, I had a PlayStation 2, right? The PlayStation 1, whatever the console was, whatever the newest PlayStation was in 2007 or whatever. So I think that was the PlayStation 1, probably
Two
PS1.
probably at that point.
Yeah. Either ways, I would play Major League Baseball, the show, and
Mhm.
I would play Sly Cooper, and I would play NBA 2K, and college football, and all these sports games. I loved playing them. And I was also looking for different like free games that they would have on like the PlayStation Store or whatever. So like little indie games that were maybe for free at that time. Or I would go to the computer and I'd play Jumping Bean or Red Alert, which I also played with my cousin when we went over to his house. But like you, Alfred, I would play with my dad, but we would play hunting games on his PC computer in his work office, or the joystick flight simulator, which was a lot of fun. So you're going around trying to take
Yes.
down like B2 German bombers and freaking like Japanese bombers and fighter, like you're playing dog style fighting and the air, and like playing the hunting games of trying to take down the big buck or whatever. And so those were some of really, like, I really loved doing that stuff growing up. And I had some really wonky games that I don't even like. I remember playing them, but I don't remember their titles. You have any games that are like that for you guys, where you remember playing them, but you wouldn't be able to remember what it's called to save your life?
I mean, there's some that I've gone back and found from when I was a kid because I wanted to play it again on either emulators or like Steam releases a lot of older games sometimes. So like
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
I play when I'm really bored but just want to like mess around is Worms Armageddon. And I don't know if you guys know this game, but they're
Mm-mm.
like little cartoon worms and you'll be put into an arena and they give them like handguns, machine guns, grenades, rocket launchers, and you shoot around this arena trying to like angle your shots and hit the other ones. So you get like four on your team and four on the other team. You place them where you want them, or it's randomized, and you're supposed to take out the other team. But it's really silly and cartoonish. You can throw a grenade up in the air and it could bounce back and then land right on top of you, damaging yourself or like things like that. But it was like a super old, not great graphics game, but from when I was a kid, and like I'll even go back to it nowadays, but there's few that I can't think of the names of because I usually am pretty good at
Yeah.
remembering those.
Yeah.
Like for
Have
me, I
a
guess a couple of oddball ones that maybe not everyone knows. Gauntlet for the original Nintendo was one of my favorites. It was a medieval style dungeon crawler game. You get to choose like a wizard or a warrior or a archer and go through these dungeons. Uh, it was old school, so it was very 2D, very pixelated. Uh, Outside of that, there's a newer one I found called Towerfall. It's again the old style arcade 2D moving screen kind of thing, but you play as archers and you have to kill one another, and it's just such a funny game, especially when you're all playing together. And it's like the arrows will do crazy things. That's a great one. But yeah, I'm with you, Ryan. Most of the games that I've thought of in that vein, I've looked up and either own or remember just because I was interested to find that game again.
100%. Did either one of you guys play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater?
Absolutely.
Oh
Love
yeah,
that
And
game.
I 100% will admit this. I cheated in that game all the time.
Same,
Oh
of
yeah,
I
course.
turned like every cheat available in that game on so that I could rack up those unridiculous scores where you
Yeah,
never fell off the skateboard. But
cheat
can
codes,
we
man,
just
all
point
the
out
way.
how awesome cheat codes used to be? Like the
yes,
fact that they were made for games,
yeah.
like that the creators didn't hide them. They were like, oh no, here are the cheats. This is how you can make the game bananas by doing X.
I mean, that
Oh
brings
yeah,
up a good question, not to cut you off, Nathan, but like, are you guys pro playing the game with cheat codes, or are you guys pro playing the game without the cheat codes in those scenarios?
playing the game when you're playing yourself, campaign stuff you're doing on your own. I'm all for cheat codes. Online, piss off because that's just not fair.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
And I
Um,
think
Yeah,
online
I think it's
options are,
difference between cheat codes and hacking.
yeah, most
yeah.
definitely. But like, I
So
think
yeah.
there's that challenge mode of like, do I play with cheat codes? You shouldn't play the game with cheat codes because then you can't really experience the game. But I'm a proponent of I want to enjoy the game. So if I'm going to make the game at my level of difficulty with cheat codes, that's what I'm going to do to make the game the most enjoyable for me, as opposed to like failing at the game miserably. So
Oh,
that's kind of my take on it.
Like with Tony Hawk Pro Skater, like the cheat codes were fun just because you could do crazy things, and at that point, either A, I had already beaten the game, or
Hmm.
B, the unlocking the next stage wasn't as important to me as
Hmm.
having fun.
mhm.
Yeah.
And doing the crazy tricks because you can fly was more fun to me than just unlocking the next level. Which little
Yeah.
side note, there was also a BMX game that I really enjoyed, but it was similar in the same vein as Pro Skater, but instead of skateboards, you rode BMX bikes. Uh, but there was another game too along the cheat codes line, NHL Hits 2002, which is another memory lane that I have. But it was an arcade style hockey game. One of the first ones I got. I sucked at it. My cousin scored the first goal in the game years after I owned it, and then all of a sudden I was able to score in it. And it was a great game. But that to say, in the startup menu while you're loading, you had the option to do cheats, and it wasn't like you could look up, and that's what I eventually did. But it was like a slot game, but you got to choose what you wanted in the slots. And if you chose right, you could choose actual cheat codes that would spawn in the game. Uh, but they were because since it was already an arcade game, it was fun. It added crazy, silly things to it. Cheat codes in that game were fun because it was an arcade style game. But I do agree that online or in competitive play, cheat codes don't need to be in there.
And I definitely think the online thing is if the cheat codes are universal, so like you're all playing in the same mode where the cheats are enabled for everyone, I don't think that's an issue because everyone can exploit what's going on. If you're aimbotting
Correct.
in a game where no one else is aimbotting, then you're cheating, and I don't think that's an acceptable thing. Just like that goes to the very like core of like people are playing on their TV and they put a little crosshair on their TV to know whenever something pops into that middle of their screen, they know they're on target. Is that cheating is like a question mark. I mean, you're not
Yeah,
really
I could see
affecting the
that.
game digitally, but I can see that. But one game I wanted to bring up now that we're on kind of cheat codes was a game called Evil Genius. And I don't know if I talked about this in the first episode we talked about video games. Um, but I fell in love with this game. You play obviously an evil genius trying to take over the world. You get to recruit henchmen, and then you go off and like commit evil deeds. You build like your super base on an island, and like you
This
can
sounds
build it how.
amazing.
Oh, it's an amazing game. It was built. This came out in like I want to say the late '90s, early 2000s, and they had cheat codes for like getting super henchmen easier or gaining money. If you did not use the cheat codes, it took forever to build your base because you had to like slowly get money, and then finally you could start like building your base and adapting it the way you wanted to. If you use cheat codes, like you could just go right from the beginning and play the game like quicker. And that's why like I'd always give myself enough money to like truly play the game. But that was one where like I always used the cheat codes, but again, single player. Um, Downside to that,
As I've mentioned,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that reminds me, my sisters played The Sims all the time, and they would always use the money cheat for the same reason.
Yeah, I think I did the same thing in Sims too. But finally, Evil Genius was so old, people were asking, like fans of the game, were asking for a second edition of it for years and years and years and years. So, like 15 years later, they finally put out Evil Genius 2, and there are no cheat codes. And I waited so long for this game, and I played it, and it's great graphics. Looks like a good game. I lasted about like an hour of playing the game and was like, this isn't as fun to me as when I played it originally now, even though it looks a million times better with all these new fancy graphics. So there is an argument for like how we play games affecting our enjoyment of it.
Oh, there would be a I'd be playing like a racing game, like Mazda Sport 3, or I'd be playing NBA 2K or whatever, or MLB The Show in campaign mode. I would go into my roster and I would edit my players and max out all their stats, even the pitchers. I'm like, oh, I got Carlos Zambrano. This dude can hit home runs. He's got rage issues, but he can still hit home runs. So I would just max out all my players, and then I would be like, max all my pitchers too. So every single pitch, like every fastball is like 106 miles an hour. Like every curveball is like 86 miles an hour. And like, or the changeups would be like 56 miles an hour. So it'd be so opposite of everything. And so I would do that for the season because I just want to go through and like be undefeated or something, or do some weird crap just for the fun of it. Because I chose to do that. I already
Yeah.
played the game without doing it. So I'm like, I'm going to have fun now. So I just went in and completely just decimated all stats on my roster. So everybody was
That's
hitting
great.
home runs. Dude, I was going through the lineup. Like they had a pitcher in for like the Cincinnati Reds. I'm playing with the Cubs. And I'm like, I got my second baseman, like Tony Lestrada, or I've got like, old school Alfonso Soriano. He's up the bat and he's got already 2 home runs in the same inning because I've gone through the lineup twice. I just keep doing it. Um,
Oh yeah.
but yeah. So, anyways, apart from cheat codes, I'm wondering, have you guys played any of the Titanfall games or Titanfall 2 or any of those?
I don't think so.
What about the old school Lord of the Rings video games? I actually had a request from someone asking why we didn't bring that up in our last episode, so I promised that we would.
PlayStation 2, Lord of the Rings, Two
Yep,
Towers, the
correct.
greatest Lord of the Rings game ever made, and I wish they would make another one. Reboot it,
So do
or
I.
it was so amazing.
I did not play it. I
I
wish I had.
Oh, dude, it. Oh, you could play as Legolas, Gimli. I think you could even play as some of the hobbits. Gandalf, Aragon was the one I always played with, and you leveled them up as you played through the story. And it was difficult at times, but just the right amount of difficult. Oh, I love that game. Loved it so much. Which brings me to a point. How I played that game was Blockbuster, and I miss that. And with obviously digital downloads, we'll never have that again. But I
Yeah.
don't think people understand the wonder of going to Blockbuster Friday night, getting a game for the weekend, and like you
yes.
could go in and be like, oh wow, $7 for any video game, brand new or not, and I can play it.
Yep.
Ah, that just every time I walked into that store was happiness, no matter what. Now there were some times you go and you're like, yeah, I don't want to play any of this stuff, but it was just an amazing time, and I don't think that'll ever be replicated. And it kind of again that nostalgia thing.
No, I don't think so. I think Xbox tries to do something similar with like their Game Pass where there are titles on there that you can basically rent while you're paying for your subscription, but I don't think it matches what you're talking about with being able to go to a Blockbuster, a Family Video or Second Cinema, whatever it was in your town, and just be able to pick up whatever game was coming out and play for the weekend and then return. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came out in 2002, and it was made for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Game Boy Advance. And I'm wondering if you can still get the game. Um on Xbox today and PlayStation. I'm wondering because you can do the same thing for KOTOR and for Jedi Academy and all that stuff. And
Side note, I played it on the Game Boy Advance. It was not as good as the PlayStation or the Xbox version.
yeah,
I mean, that actually brings me to like another question, kind of with what Nathan just said there with playing those old games. There was a period in time where when consoles would go forward a step, so like PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3 and 3 to 4, backwards compatible was either you could or you couldn't, and it made or break like people's thoughts on those consoles based on just that. Did you guys have experience with that or?
yeah. And I mean, I'm reading something about that right now where it says Lord of the Rings 2 Tower is not backwards compatible and cannot be played on the new Xbox systems. I'm just like, so you do it for the Knights of the Old Republic and Star Wars Jedi Academy, but you won't do it for like other popular games. Like you guys remember the old school game Star Wars 3, Revenge of the
Yes.
Sith, the video
Mhm.
game? It was amazing. You could go through and play as Anakin or Obi-Wan or whatever you wanted to do. It was so much fun. And you can't play those games anymore.
Yep.
You can't even find them.
Hmm.
I'm like, these were the best games ever. Like the PlayStation community has been begging and begging for Sly Cooper to be remastered, and they won't do it.
Yep. Same thing with Time Splitters 2 is a
I
PlayStation 2 game. And I keep asking, and there's a whole like thread on the internet for people requesting that. And they almost did it, but then like somebody that owned the rights to it denied it. And so like it hasn't been re-released because Steam was going to release it and then it got blocked at some point.
So I
see.
guess what I have to do.
I'm a fan of backwards compatibility. That was one of the reasons why I was so hesitant to get Xbox was because all of it was the first console that wasn't backwards compatible because PlayStation 2, you could play every PlayStation 1 game you wanted on it. And
Hmm.
that was one of the selling points in my mind. And then PS3 didn't do that to my knowledge, at least not as
Correct.
far back as PS1. It might have done some PS2
No,
games,
I think
but
PS3 was when they changed it.
see,
Mm,
and like that's like stabbing someone in the heart because it's like, no, you can't play those games you really love because we're moving past that. But it's like those games are still playable. They're
Hmm.
still entertaining. And the fact that it's almost like a gatekeeping thing where it's like, nope, you either have to buy a console or hope we end up remaking that game where you give us more money.
I
Yep.
mean, you're lucky, Alfred. You have the original Xbox. You can still play Lord of the Rings 2 Towers. So I guess what this means
I
for
don't have the
me,
original Xbox.
you have the
X
Xbox One.
X
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
so I guess what this means for us is that we need to go hunting online. I'm going to buy a PlayStation 2,
Mhm.
an original Xbox, a GameCube, and all these old systems that you can still find online and order. And then I'm going to order all these old school games and play them because I don't care about graphics. Everybody's just like, "Oh, bro, the graphics look so rad, man." I'm like, I don't give two flying bats about the graphics. I care about the gameplay and the story. Like that's what I want to have
Yep.
fun playing the game. I don't care what it looks like. Um, that's why Nintendo games were
Speaking
so
of,
popular and still are so popular
yes,
today because no one
Spyro.
gives a crap. Yes,
Spyro,
yes.
that style of game, I mean, I want to say arcade, but it's not. But like those games, I feel like you can't find really anymore.
Hmm.
Spyro was so I, iconic, unique, where outside of playing as a dragon, like the gameplay was very unique in
Yeah.
that you could do side quests, you could do main quests, but it was the style of gameplay that really hits home for me when I'm thinking about those old school, nostalgic, easy peace of mind games, and not
I still
necessarily
have
easy
Spyro.
gameplay. Ah,
I have it on my Nintendo Switch. They have Spyro for Nintendo Switch. You can still get it.
I've debated it. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Oh, you got to. I mean, it's amazing. Like the new Mario Kart and the new Super Smash Mario Brothers, and the new Spyro game. So I've got the Spyro game. I've got Donkey Kong. I've got Zelda Breath of the Wild. Um, I've got some other old school games too, like just classic Mario Adventure, so Mario Brothers, just and it's got like it's basically like this arcade where you can go into the systems and you can pick any of the old school Mario games and you can play all of them. It's really cool. Um,
That is,
I got Star Fox because Star Fox is an awesome game, and I used to play the crap out of that on GameCube when I'd go to a friend's house. That or Pokemon Arena, and you just choose
yeah.
which character you wanted to play with. So I would always try to get Mewtwo if I could, but of course everybody else always had Mewtwo, the most OP character. It's like, fine, I will choose Belgazor or something, or I'll choose Pikachu's special cousin or what, I don't know. Like I'm like, all I know to play is like Mewtwo. Like I'm like, or Charizard or something. So I would try to get like the powerhouse trio for like, you've got Charizard. Congrats. Um, did you guys ever play Tales of Fantasia or not?
Mm-mm.
No, I'm surprised.
So Tales of Fantasia, I was like, I've heard about this from other people, and I've been curious about it myself. Um, so it was a Super Nintendo and Entertainment System, PlayStation Portable, PlayStation Game Boy Advance. And this game is, if I can get the description of it here. So Tales of Fantasia is an action role-playing video game developed by Wolf Team and published by Namco for the Super Famicom. Originally released only in Japan in December of 1995, it's the first title in the Tales series. It was later ported to a number of other platforms, including Japan exclusive version for the PlayStation in December '98, and a Game Boy Advance version published by Namco in Japan in August of 2003. And it was later published in Nintendo in North America and Europe in March of 2006. So this game takes place in a fantasy world of Asalia and follows Cress Alban, a highly trained swordsman who is driven by vengeance after his hometown is destroyed. Seeking further answers, he finds out that this is none other than a scheme to free the warmongering Daos, the game's main antagonist. So it looks to be a pretty interesting game. Um, so I
Sounds
might
like
have to, yeah, I might have to see if they have this for Nintendo Switch. Because I've heard of this before from people who are like, "You ever played Tales of Fantasia?" I'm like, I have not, but should I? Yes, I should.
right.
Um,
One of my all-time favorite, like, consumed a majority of my childhood outside of the NHL franchise, any NHL game I played, but and sports in general. The Dragon Ball Z, Tenkaichi, and Budokai games, the Saga games, every Dragon Ball Z style game I had owned at one point and played crazily because it was, I mean, we're the nerdy host. We've talked about anime and that enough, but Dragon Ball Z was such a huge, not in like we've reached a stopping point of talking about that. We will continue past that. Uh, but to drive the point home that DBZ was always a huge part of my childhood and playing those games, getting to be the characters that we love so much, uh, consumed a large majority of my childhood.
It's it's funny that you even brought that up because my eyeballs were plastered on Dragon Ball Z Fighter Z, and I was about to make that my next talking point. But you already covered that. So um, the those types of games are like the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 or those types of like Mortal Kombat style anime games were a lot of fun, I think. Or just really in general. But have you
Yep.
guys played Dragon's Dogma Dark Horizon?
Nope.
No,
Okay. What about Resident Evil?
I did play a little bit of that
I
franchise.
never played it.
Yeah, I never did either. Tetris?
Yeah,
Have you
I
guys
did
played
like
Tetris?
Of
Tetris.
course,
Tetris was fun. What about Paper Mario? Do you remember Paper Mario?
I do.
I do. I never played it, but I remember it. Do you
Do
guys
you
remember
remember
the original Rainbow Six?
Hmm.
yeah, Rainbow Six Siege,
Yep.
Tom Clancy? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I still own that game. Um, you remember Terraria?
I do,
Mm-mm.
and there was a version of that game that came out after Terraria called Starbound, which was like Terraria in space, and like I was
Nice.
addicted to Starbound. I didn't actually play a lot of Terraria.
Okay, so um have any of you guys played Overwatch at all?
Yes. When I was playing League of
I never
Legends, I
played it.
played the crap out of Overwatch, and I played
Dude, I
Junkrat nonstop and just let that bomb loose the whole time.
dude, seriously, I loved Overwatch. It was one of the few online games I would actually play because I was actually good enough at it to play.
Oh, I
And
sucked at it, but I still played it.
I mean, I sucked in comparison to like, the regular online people, but I knew how to play it well enough to where I was like, all right, let's go online. Call of Duty, I would go online and get decimated. I didn't really care. I was just like, whatever. I'm here to play the game and have fun. But I loved Overwatch. People tried to get me to play like Red Dead and Borderlands and like what the heck, Far Cry. I think it's called Far Cry. Um, I haven't played Far Cry. I haven't played Destiny or like any of those games that people are like super up and ante about. I just honestly, old school Star Wars games, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, Star Wars 3, KOTOR, I have that still. Knights Jedi Academy. I have the new Battlefront games because just like I said, I'm a sucker for Star Wars games. Um, I have Fallen Order. I need to get the second Fallen Order game because I've been really looking forward to that. But I'm gonna start going around and looking for like some hacks and cheats to get the old Lord of the Rings games because man, am I salty now. Like,
Yeah.
mm,
I'm sure
I
there
got a
but
has
couple
to be
here
a
too that
way.
I want to run down
Sure.
before we. So Metal Gear Solid. I feel like we've talked about
nice.
that a little bit. But that was a game I used to watch my cousin play all the time. I never had it, but just playing it along with him was fun. Sonic on Sega was just a blast. Uh,
Yep.
I mean, that defined a lot of my childhood playtime.
Hmm.
Sonic and Tails, the
I
different
love
versions
Sonic.
of it.
Me too.
I know we keep it PG on here, but Vice City and the other Grand Theft Auto games,
Yep.
those were I didn't play it as much as my peers did, but it was still a fun game to play.
Hmm.
I played more Driver than I did Vice City, but Driver was a fun game. Uh, then Ghost Recon, similar to Rainbow Six, but that was I preferred Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six to Call of Duty, and then but I preferred the original Call of Duties like Medal of Honor and stuff like that, where you played in World War II. That was some of my favorite shooter games.
Call of
You guys
Duty
ever
World
play
War
Soul
II.
Reaver? Yes. You ever play Soul Reaver?
Nope.
No.
You played as like a vampire, and your brother was Kane, and he was trying to overthrow the hierarchy or whatever, and it was a detailed puzzle type of RPG, kind of how like Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 had the puzzles you could do and whatnot. So that was a fun
Okay.
game, dark, gritty, supernatural style. So that was really cool. And then uh, Mario Party. That again was one of my big time childhood ones, trying to
I
get
did
as
like
many
that.
stars as you could.
Yep.
There's so many old school video games that were so good. Like, and especially I'm thinking about like Call of Duty World Modern Warfare, the OG like amazing campaign, or Call of Duty World War II, which was one of the newer ones from the last like 8 years, but it's still that was one of the few games where people were like, this reminds me of Modern Warfare. Like this is actually really good. Because Call of Duty and Treyarch and some of the companies that made some of the Call of Duty Black Ops made. I think was it Treyarch who made the good ones or not, but some of the COD games like Advanced Warfare was just meh, and like Call of Duty Ghosts. I thought the campaigns were decent, but I mean the overall gameplay of the whole game was pretty much just hot garbage. Um, but I mean, I still love playing sports games, even though I don't really watch sports much more anymore. I'll still play MLB The Show or
Hmm.
NBA 2K or Madden NFL Madden The Show. Um,
So the only thing that might get me to get a new Xbox is the fact that they're bringing back NCAA
that's
because the
exactly
college
what I
football
was.
game.
Yep. You can't play that on the Series S.
I don't know yet. I've only looked into it very little. But I was like, oh man. So I'm gonna see if you can play it on the Xbox One or S. I'm probably gonna upgrade, but I don't know.
It says you'll be able to play on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and Series S.
Okay, so I would have to upgrade from the one, which I don't know if I want to do, but I might have to.
Because dude, when I saw they were bringing back college football, I've been waiting for them to bring back college football for a video game for like
Ever.
Hmm.
ever, like man. So yeah, we that's gonna be a fun one. I'm actually excited for it. Like I don't care about real world sports anymore, but I still love playing the video games because I'm like I can control how all of this is gonna go. So
Okay,
I'm
so
trying to think.
I want
Yeah,
to end this episode with a question to you guys, and it's one that's gone around TikTok, and I actually posted a video about it. But if you guys could either A, create a video game based on whatever you wanted that you would play, what would it be? Or what is a video game that you wish would be made or remade? Either question or both questions you can answer. I know we've touched on it a little bit.
I wish they would make a video game of my book series, Kingdom Society. That would be really neat. Can I get that, please?
That would be a cool
um,
thing.
well, I think it would make an epic game similar to Skyrim or anything like that. So I'm being dead serious.
Yeah.
Um, but if I would see anything remade, Knights of the Old Republic remastered slash remade would be amazing. Just not screwed up. So Bethesda, stay far away, and some other game developer come in and just don't take a giant crap on it. Um, but I would love to see Knights of the Old Republic somewhat remastered. I would like to see the Mass Effect series remastered as well. Um, quite honest, because Mass Effect's a lot of fun. So say
Okay.
between Mass Effect and KOTOR. Um, oh, hello. We were just talking about it. Sly Cooper and the Lord of the Rings video games. I would like to see those remastered and made cross-platform and backwards compatible. Yeah,
Yep.
I definitely think if Time Splitters could be re-released or like upgraded with better graphics and then re-released, I think that would be really cool. But you know what I'd really like to see is like I know there is similar stuff to it, but like in Indiana Jones, since we had that episode before, but turned into a video game, so it's kind of like Tomb Raider, kind of like
yeah.
what's the Tom Holland movie that was a
Oh,
video game before?
Uncharted.
Uncharted, thank you. So that, but like in Indiana Jones type, even could even be like the young Indiana Jones adventures or something like that. So something like that would be cool, just to throw a
es-
curveball out there.
especially because they have Lego Indiana Jones, so you
Yeah.
could just make it a more live action RPG kind of style or updated graphic, not Lego.
Hmm.
That would be really cool.
Thank you. You just reminded me, Alfred. All the Lego video games, I love them so
Yeah,
much.
they are
Like
good.
they're
Yep.
so stupid, and I love it. It's just so much fun. I love them so much. Um,
So do I. Oh man,
there's
that brings back memories. That's so good.
like Indiana standing next to Marion, and it's like the doo, 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 and then I just smack, and all the Lego parts come across apart. It's so dumb, but I love it. Um, but
For
yeah,
me, uh, Nathan, Ryan, I don't know how many sports games you have played or not,
A
but
lot.
like okay, good. So when you like the be a pro mode, when you get to play as like a created player, I want to see something like that in an RPG style because that story is always lacking for me. Whether
Hmm.
it's wrestling, hockey, football, all of these be a pro modes, it's really just a copy and paste every time you play from season
yeah,
after season. So I'd kind of love a more detailed depth dive into that where when it's like, okay, you have to make a choice. Are you going to go hang out with friends or are you going to actually go to bed early or whatnot and
So
have those choices affect you just like real life?
like a Sims meets a sports game combined together.
Yeah, with the graphics and playability of like an RPG or the sports game, not so much the silliness of Sims, but
Yeah.
yeah, Sims meets sports. That would be an epic game I think to play.
Hmm.
yeah, it'll be fun. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been yet another amazing episode. It's been our part 2 of our video games, and I'm sure we'll be back again later with some other type of video games material. But this was the
Absolutely.
request, so we tried to indulge the requests that we received. Sorry if we didn't go in depth as much on certain ones that you wanted us to, but we will try to get to it again. So, as always, thank you for following your bearded nerdy hosts, and for old time's sake, funky fantasy, the bowler, Stratus arrows, it's the war of nerds. That was so off cue. All right, have a good night. See y'all.